Omega Core Gym. A name spoken in hushed, reverent tones across the galaxy. Warriors from every system came here to push their limits, to become legends. The air reeked of sweat, metal, and the lingering charge of overclocked gravity chambers. The front desk attendant barely looked up when the human walked in. Jack Carter. Just another hopeful, another fool who thought he could handle Omega Core's brutal regimen. The receptionist barely stifled a smirk as he handed over the gym's waiver, more of a disclaimer, really. The facility is not liable for broken bones, torn limbs, or permanent incapacitation. Jack signed without hesitation. As he stepped onto the training floor, eyes turned. Hulking figures loomed over customized equipment designed for species 3 times his size. Alien warriors curled weights heavier than his entire body. In one corner, a reptilian brute casually bench-pressed a metallic slab that would have flattened most humans. A few trainees chuckled. A human? Here? He wouldn't last 10 minutes. Jack ignored them. He wasn't here to impress anyone. He started slow, studying the movement of each species. The way a 4-armed behemoth loaded pressure onto the wrong joints. How a feline-like warrior sacrificed form for raw speed. Mistakes. Small but costly. Then, he saw a Xener struggling under a squat bar. The alien's legs shook, his form crumbling under the weight. Injury waiting to happen. Jack moved before thinking. Lower your stance. Keep the weight in your heels. The Xener snarled, about to dismiss him, but something in Jack's tone made him pause. He adjusted slightly. The difference was instant. No pain. More power. He finished his rep, exhaling hard. A few nearby trainees exchanged glances. The human got lucky. That's all. Jack just smiled. He was just getting started. Word spread fast. The human wasn't just surviving, he was changing things. Warriors who had trained the same way for years suddenly found themselves questioning everything. Jack didn't lift the heaviest weights or outlast the toughest aliens, but when he spoke, people listened. You're overloading the wrong muscle groups, he told a massive Grovan struggling through a deadlift. Tweak your stance, focus on posterior chain engagement. The Grovan grunted but obeyed. His next lift was smoother, stronger. The realization dawned in his eyes. Jack's training sessions grew. First, a few curious warriors. Then more. He taught them about controlled eccentric movements, recovery periods, the balance between strength and endurance. Simple principles, but they worked. Even species built for combat were improving in ways they never thought possible. Not everyone was pleased. The veteran trainers, beings who had shaped the gym's most elite fighters, saw Jack as a threat. His methods defied their traditions. They relied on brutal repetition, extreme conditioning. No room for finesse, no time for weakness. Serkan, the head trainer, made his stance clear. 8 feet of muscle and scar tissue, his voice a growl that echoed across the gym floor. You think your soft human tricks can match real strength? Jack didn't blink. Strength without control is wasted effort. The challenge was inevitable. A trial to settle the dispute. If Jack's training was truly superior, he'd have to prove it. If he lost, he'd be banned from the gym permanently. He accepted without hesitation. Preparation began immediately. Jack didn't train alone, he trained his students. Each species had different strengths, different limitations. He adapted their workouts, refining their techniques. What once seemed impossible became routine. Warriors who had plateaued for years shattered their records in days. Serkan watched, unimpressed. He had crushed challengers before, and this human would be no different. Raw power always won in the end. The gym buzzed with anticipation. The trial would be a 3-part event, pure strength, agility, and combat. The odds were stacked against Jack. The weights alone were beyond human limits. The agility course was designed for species with faster reflexes. The final fight, no weapons, no rules, would be against Serkan himself. Jack's students warned him. You're outmatched. He just smiled. Not if I play it smart. The day arrived. Warriors gathered, placing bets. Some laughed, predicting an easy win for Serkan. Others weren't so sure. The first test began. The weight was impossible, but Jack didn't rely on brute strength. He used biomechanics, perfect positioning, controlled breathing. Where others struggled against the mass, he made the weight work for him. He didn't lift the most, but he lasted the longest. Next, the agility trial. Zero gravity. High-speed projectiles. Serkan powered through, tanking hits, brute-forcing his way forward. Jack flowed like water, dodging, predicting patterns, never wasting movement. By the final test, the laughter had stopped. Jack had done the impossible. Now, he just had to finish the job. The final challenge began. Serkan towered over Jack, a wall of muscle and experience. He had fought in wars, crushed challengers in countless duels. A single hit could end it. Jack didn't plan to get hit. Serkan lunged, a blur of raw power. Jack sidestepped, reading his movement. Every species had habits, predictable patterns. Serkan relied on overwhelming force. Jack made him miss. The crowd watched in stunned silence. No one had ever dodged Serkan like this. The war beast snarled, adjusting, coming in faster. Jack deflected, redirected his weight, turning aggression into wasted motion. Serkan swung harder, frustration creeping in. He was burning energy. Jack wasn't. Then Jack struck. Not with power, but precision. A sharp blow to a vulnerable joint. Another to an overextended limb. Serkan staggered. This wasn't brute strength. This was control. The war beast roared, going for a final, crushing blow. Jack saw it coming. He stepped inside the attack, using Serkan's own momentum against him. A perfect takedown. The ground shook. Serkan didn't rise. Silence. Then chaos. Jack had won. Not through superior force, but through strategy, adaptability. The principles he had taught had just defeated the gym's strongest warrior. The trainers had no choice but to acknowledge him. Warriors who once mocked him now sought his guidance. Even Serkan, after a long pause, gave a grudging nod. Jack wiped the sweat from his brow. Strength isn't just muscle, he said. It's knowing how to use what you have.